Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. This was a movie that I was kind of excited about because, it's a movie by a famous filmmaker and it's original, and the cast was pretty exciting, I guess. I mean, it sort of seems like, he's such a famous filmmaker that basically he could just ask all these actors to come over and like, hey, can you shoot a little scene here? Hey, can you do a little role here? And so this movie, he funded it all himself, and he's been working on it ever since the 70s when he was making Apocalypse Now. And I have to say, this movie was bad. It was really, really bad. It reminded me a lot of Babylon, if you guys remember how bad Babylon was. Except I would say that Babylon was a lot better than this, because at least that movie had somewhat of a story. I mean, you knew what was going on in a lot of in a lot of the movie. You knew the characters really well. I mean, the characters were very well defined. In this movie, it is just a mess. It is so long. It is so bad. The experience of watching this movie is it's like a never-ending torture. You're watching these actors who can act. I mean, Adam Driver's really good. You can never tell from this movie. And, it's all about this architect played by him, and he is trying to build this utopian society called Megalopolis or something. And, that's the plot. But really, there's a bunch of just random plots in this movie. The movie starts off and it introduces this element, this superpower that he has where he can stop time. And there's nothing done with that for the rest of the movie. It's like at one point he loses his power and then he gets it back. And it's like, okay, that's not very interesting, to say the least. I mean, there's a certain part in the movie where you think that, well, I guess he didn't really have enough time to react, but there was a certain part where you're like, yes, this would have been the moment to use that superpower, but no. Yeah, and as I said, there's just a bunch of random shit going on this entire movie. It is so pretentious. It's so over stylish, style over substance, which is exactly, what Francis Ford Coppola does. Aubrey Plaza is someone. In fact, I'm going to kind of go through the cast. So, Megalopolis. Because this movie, it was an experience. I've been pretty sick lately, and this movie did not really help. It was sort of like, it was, as I said, it was like torture. It was like the opposite of seeing Killers of the Flower Moon last year and just being like, wow, this is so good. It's so nice to watch a nice long movie with a lot of substance and rich character, and not with this movie. Giancarlo Esposito, he did a pretty good job, but his character was trash. He played Adam Driver's character, Caesar, called him a slumlord. That was like a big thing that happened early on in the movie. These characters were like all the different leaders of these different places or something, all these big figureheads in the city. They were all having this battle with each other on these platforms up in the sky. It was so bizarre. And then the love interest, Julia Cicero, she's the daughter of Mayor Cicero, played by Giancarlo. She was okay. I mean, her character was just like a typical like love interest character. It's like what they talk about, like where you have these actresses nowadays and they're like, I don't want to just play the love interest character. That's what this character is. She's basically just there to support Caesar. She's basically just there to compliment him. She doesn't really have a very interesting story of her own. And the actress, you know, this is the first time that I've ever seen her before in a movie. The actress, the whole movie, she keeps on making these faces of like the same couple of faces over and over again. Like she's either really interested in something and she's like, ooh, ah, or she's smiling like, hey. You know, she doesn't really have very many, it's like she's a robot or something. Like she has this very limited number of emotions and they all kind of feel like, I don't know, it's this modern thing that you see in movies now where you see these actors and they just don't feel like real people at all. And especially in this movie, you know, this movie was so bad. I can't believe it. I should have probably realized that it would be bad once I saw that Jon Voight was in it. Speaking of Jon Voight, his character, he was pretty bad too. He had this really weird boner joke near the end that I don't want to spoil, but like, yeah, that's all I'll say. Like, it's Jon Voight being Jon Voight. And speaking of actors just playing themselves, Aubrey Plaza is in this movie. You know, I do not like Aubrey Plaza. I don't. I know that might be a bit of a controversy because everyone seems to love her, and I despise her so much. She just comes on screen, she plays herself, she does the same shit in every movie, and I do not like her at all. Now, she's been okay sometimes. Like, I saw that one movie where she was with Michael Caine and they were doing like a book tour together. She was okay in that. Like, I thought maybe from that movie, you know, maybe she deserves a break. Maybe she deserves like a better movie, but not really after seeing this. Shia LaBeouf was also really, really strange. He was a crazy person. He was really irritating. Like, he's that one character that you just hate, and he did a really good job at playing that, like, hateable character. You know, I know that Shia LaBeouf is not the greatest person in real life, but at least when he's in a movie, he always seems to do a pretty good job. I mean, he always seems to do a lot better than what people give him credit for, in terms of, like, I don't know, like, it seems like he would have been a much bigger star than he turned out to be, if not for, like, the real life controversies. Lawrence Fishburne was also an interesting character in this movie. You know, he said that him and Francis Ford Coppola were talking about making this movie since the 70s, since he was making Apocalypse Now. And what I think is hilarious is the fact that, you know, I'm not going to say, like, anything about, like, I'm not one of those people who talks about, like, who says that, like, a movie is racist or whatever, but, like, the way that Lawrence Fishburne's character is in this movie, it's like all he does is chauffeur around Adam Driver, put on his clothes for him. It's a very, like, old-fashioned thing. I don't know. It's just really, really weird. And he narrates the movie. And there's another weird thing in this movie is that this movie has, like, chapter cards. You know, so it'll say, like, chapter 1, or not really like chapter 1, but like they'll have these weird chapter cards that kind of, you know, I don't know, like they break up the movie so that, you know, this section is about this section is about this. But the chapter cards really don't feel like they were necessary at all. They feel like they were kind of extraneous and kind of like, again, just style over substance. The dialogue was terrible. The music was terrible. And basically, I mean, I didn't even... I didn't even notice the music throughout this movie. Like, I really felt like... I don't know. I hated this movie. Like, I gotta say, I didn't think that anything could be worse this year. I didn't think that anything could be worse than Reagan. But this movie's worse. This movie takes the cake. I think that this movie is probably one of the worst movies that I've ever seen. And I know that a lot of people are kind of like... They're kind of romanticizing the movie. You know, they're saying that, like, oh my god, it's so good because people hate it and people love it. But it's like, that's not really what makes a good movie. You know, like, what makes a good movie is if it's actually good. And in this case, this movie is just terrible. I mean, it is so meaningless and pointless. You know, you got this main character. Everyone seems to want to take him down. Everyone seems to want to, you know, make him go through as much pain and suffering as possible. Like, there's this part where there's this girl, and there's like a deep fake of him and her, and it's like, oh, she's underage, but then it turns out that she's not underage, and it's like, that's a random plot in the movie. And it's like, that's this whole movie is just a bunch of random plots over and over and over again. The only thing that's consistent is Adam Driver. He has this battle with time. He hates time. Time is like his biggest enemy. So he's essentially the James Rolfe of the Francis Ford Coppola universe. You know, like, he really felt like the angry video game nerd. Like, what if he got to take over the world? You know, and that's another thing, too, to talk about, is this whole Roman Empire shit. This whole Neo-Roman Empire thing going on here. I'm really sick and tired of the Roman Empire. I know that I haven't really seen a lot of Roman Empire stuff. I know that the Roman Empire stuff is a big thing for a lot of guys. But I am sick and tired of the Roman Empire. I am sick and tired of this gluttonous, like, just over the top, just style over substance, just this pretentious fucking just rich people slop. Like, this movie is slop. It is a slop movie. It should be called Megalopolis, because I hate this movie. I mean, another thing is that they don't really get into the specifics of, like, this Megalopolis. It's not about building this futuristic city. It's about the idea of building a futuristic city. It's about the idea of Adam Driver's character being this Caesar type of character, and it's just so I really don't know what else to say about this movie. I am just in awe that this movie was even made. This is one of those movies that should have never been made. It's a movie that there's a reason why it wasn't made in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. There's a reason. It's because it's trash. It's a trash movie. Francis Ford Coppola is a trash filmmaker. He's overrated as hell. He always does this in every single fucking movie that he does. Even the best movies of his, he is always about style over substance. He's never about telling a good story. He's never about having good characters. He's always just about satisfying himself. And there was a lot of that in this movie, too. I don't even want to get into that. It's just this movie. Woof. 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 So in terms of food, it's really tough because I don't think that there's a food that I hate enough to describe as this movie. Like, I mean, this movie, it breaks new boundaries in terms of how bad it is. It is that bad. So, God, what do I give this movie? I don't know. I really don't know. You know what? There's this restaurant, and Safi and I, we watch MasterChef. And there was this one chef, and he likes to take all this food, this like balloons and weird things, and he picks them up and then he throws them on a table and breaks them into pieces. And you're supposed to eat the pieces that are broken all over the table. And that's like his idea of futuristic food. And I've never had that guy's food. He has like a restaurant in Chicago. But the idea of his food is gross to me. And it's just really weird and stupid. And I think that, just like with that, this movie, it is totally wrong. It is totally not what we need in terms of movies right now. I can see, after all the criticism of like, oh, why won't any distributors pick up this movie and distribute it, in theaters? Like, I understand that now. Because this movie, it should have been distributed to no one. It should have never been made. Even if it was made, since it was made, unfortunately, I just finished it. Since it was made, this movie should have been distributed to the trash. Or you know what else it could have been? This should have been a straight-to-streaming movie. There was no reason to see this movie in theaters. Like, why would you want to see this ugly-ass movie in theaters? Like, oh, so that you can support this crappy, overrated filmmaker who hasn't made a good movie since how long ago? Like, fuck this movie. I hate this movie. Hate it. So please like this video and comment and tell me what you thought of this trash movie. And then please subscribe to our channel if you would like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.